Puerto Rico is the now classic game of role selection and colony building from designer Andreas Seyfarth and Rio Grande Games.
In Puerto Rico, players are colonists that are traveling to the New World in order to earn their fortune through building plantations and cities. It plays out in 1.5 to 2 hours and accommodates 3 to 5 players.
So each player begins Puerto Rico with their own player board, some starting money, and one plantation tile which they're immediately going to place face up on the board. The rest of the plantations go in a central area in 5 face-down stacks, and then a number of tiles determined by the number of players are turned face up. This central space also contains the face-up city tiles, the quarry tiles, tokens, ships, trading house, and the 7 role selection cards, as well as the extra money and the victory point pool. Finally, the first player is going to take the governor card.
So the game ends when the victory point pool runs out, when there aren't enough colonists to fill the colonist ship, or when one player fills their 12th city space on their personal board. At that point, the player with the most victory points wins the game.
Now each round of Puerto Rico is going to play out a little differently because the phases of the round depend on the role cards that are chosen by each of the players. So the governor is going to start by choosing a role and executing its basic action as well as the privilege that's listed below it. Every other player then gets to execute only that basic action. Each round is going to have a number of phases that matches the number of players, and they're chosen from 7 available options.
The settler phase lets each player take one face-up plantation tile and place it on their personal board. The settler has the choice of choosing a quarry tile instead of a plantation tile. Now, plantations allow you to produce raw goods, which you can use to create trade goods with later. At the end of the settler phase, the plantation tiles which are face up are refreshed. In the mayor phase, players take colonists off the colonist ship and place them on their quarries, their plantations, or their buildings. Now, without workers or colonists on these tiles, those tiles aren't active. Starting with the mayor, each player takes a colonist off the colonist ship. Then the mayor gets an extra one out of the supply. At the end of the mayor phase, the ship is refilled with new colonists.
During the builder phase, each player has the chance of adding a city tile to their player board by paying the cost listed in its leftmost circle. Now each quarry you have provides a discount up to the maximum that's indicated at the top of that tile's column on the central board. The builder also gets an extra discount of 1. Now every tile that you add to your player board is going to stay in its position permanently, so you have to make sure that you leave room for those larger tiles that are going to show up later in the game.
Each building is worth the amount of victory points that's listed in the top right. Also, each building has a function. Production buildings allow you to take the raw materials that you make on a specific kind of plantation and change them into trade goods. Each one produces as many barrels of trade good as you have workers on that tile, as long as you have enough plantations to support that. Small purple buildings give you a bonus to certain actions or certain phases, and large purple buildings give you victory points.
The craftsman phase of Puerto Rico lets each player produce trade goods. Sugar, tobacco, coffee, and indigo are refined in their respective production buildings, while corn can be produced straight off the plantation. Starting with the craftsman, each player is going to take the amount of trade goods that they're able to produce from the central supply. Now, if that supply runs out of any one type of trade good, then there's a shortage. The craftsman also gets 1 extra trade good of their chosen type.
The trader phase lets each player trade 1 good to the trading house for the good's value. Each good has a different value. The trader gets 1 extra doubloon for their good. Now, the trading house has 4 spaces on it. Each of those spaces has to be filled with a different kind of good. At the end of the phase, if the trading house is full, then those resources are cleared off of it. If it's not completely full, then it's left for future rounds.
The captain phase is for shipping goods back to the old world. The captain starts by placing all of their goods of 1 type on an available ship. Every other player is then going to do the same thing as long as they're able. Now each ship can only hold goods of 1 type, and you can't start loading goods onto an empty ship if there's room for them on another one. Each player is going to get 1 victory point for every barrel of trade goods that they ship this way, and the captain gets an extra victory point.
Any goods that a player can't ship have to be stored. Now you can store 1 good on your windrows on your personal board. Anything beyond that has to go in a warehouse or be discarded. At the end of the captain phase, the captain clears off any ships that are completely full. Any that aren't completely full, those stay for future rounds.
The last role is that of the prospector, which earns the person who chose it 1 doubloon, but doesn't actually trigger an action round. Once every player has chosen and played out their role, then all of the roles that weren't chosen have a doubloon placed on them before all the used role cards are returned to the center. Next, the governor card passes to the player on their left, and a new turn begins.
So a really great thing about this game is the role selection element. It means that every round that you play is going to feel a little bit different depending on which cards everybody picks, depending on which roles show up, and that adds nice variety to the game and nice player interaction. Another great thing about this game is the components, the art. Lots of nice little wooden pieces which are very, very pretty, and anybody who appreciates quality is going to like this game for that. A con, however, is that a lot of turns in this game can run a bit long just because people can focus a little bit too much on the detail, analysis paralysis sets in, and rounds can just go on and on forever, and that can be a pretty unfortunate part of some games. Also, since this game is a little older, it features a lot of mechanics that you're going to see in newer games. So it can feel like there's nothing new in this game and it's not original. Well, that's because it was one of the first games to do what it does.
Another potential con of this game is that turn order does have a very significant effect on what you can do, so you may find yourself a little frustrated some turns, like if you're one of the last players to go in the captain phase and there's no room for you to ship goods, or you really can't choose that role you wanted because you were the last in line. Also, the colonization theme is not for everybody. Some people find it a little dry, some people find it off-putting for other reasons, while other people don't mind at all, so that's something that's really going to depend on your gaming group. One thing that a lot of people will like very much is the fact that there's actually a number of different paths to victory. Not everybody has to take the same strategy, and so if somebody else picks that card you really wanted, you can try building your strategy around doing something different, and you're still very likely to succeed. This is also a game where all of the information is really out in the open and there's not a lot of randomness, so it creates great opportunities for long-term planning and strategy, which a lot of people really enjoy and are going to find a very fulfilling aspect of playing Puerto Rico.